on the great Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. On the great Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, there is a quote from this week's Torah reading. And you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land for all of its inhabitants. The verse in Hebrew is Ukratem D'ror Ba'aretz T'chol Yoshveha. That word, liberty, Ukratem D'ror, liberty. It appears very rarely in the Torah. It's a very odd word. It's mysterious. The quoted verse from the chapter of Leviticus 25 is about Yovel, and we'll come back to the word D'ror in a moment, but it's about the Jubilee year. That verse is lifted from an entire part of the Torah service, the Torah reading that involves what is known as Yovel, a special year of celebration and release that occurred every 50 years in ancient Israel. And during that year, all debts were forgiven. All slaves were freed. The land was allowed to rest. The Jubilee year was a time of great joy, of freedom, and a reminder of God's mercy and compassion. It was a time when people could start again and experience God's grace and God's goodness in a tangible way. That verse was placed on the bell because there is a sound associated with freedom in ancient Israel. The Torah teaches us that a shofar or a ram's horn was blown to herald in and proclaim the beginning of that Jubilee year. And it was placed on that Liberty Bell so that the bell itself would become the great shofar, the great sound of freedom throughout this land. Back to the word D'ror, liberty. The Hebrew word appears very rarely, as I said, in the Bible. A few times it means a bird that can fly free. At other times it means to flow, like myrrh that would flow down. And so D'ror became freedom, meaning that which flows, movement that is unimpeded. Apparently freedom for the Torah's authors is associated with the ability to come and go, to move with impunity, to not be in a state of being stuck or static, to have the ability and the will and the agency, more importantly, to move about. That's all good, right? Movement and freedom, unfettered choices, release. But there's a slight problem with the word and with the concept. There's a crack, if you will, in that proclamation of liberty. The context of the Jubilee year matters because the Jubilee year was not every year. It was not free in every moment. The Jubilee year was the long, arduous, incremental, year by year, counting up to the 50th year. 7 cycles of 50, of 7. 7 cycles. Sheva, Shabbatot, Sheva, Pe'amim. 7 times 7, and we arrive at that freedom. The Torah goes on to tell us about slaves. The institution of slavery was very much alive and well in the Bible. Notwithstanding the 50th year and its proclamation of liberty, Israeli society in ancient Israel was nothing like D'ror. It wasn't full and free. Movement didn't come and go. Land didn't only revert to its original owners. The Liberty Bell, as many of you know, was originally commissioned in about 1751 or so. And from the very first moment, there was a crack in the bell. In fact, they had to scrap the first bell. Does that remind you of anything biblical? The first set of something? The first bell was absolutely irreparable. It was broken. So they melted it, and they started from scratch again. Solecha, nice. And by the time they made the second bell, that bell actually rang true for about 90 years. It became a part of the abolitionists' cry for freedom for all of the slaves here in America. It was taken on by the women's suffrage movement as well. But around 90 years into the project of that proclamation, a crack began to be seen again. The crack required repair, and so they widened the crack. 40 drill bit marks are seen in the actual bell itself, and the repair, though, didn't work. The fissure in the bell continued all the way up until it cut through the very word liberty itself, which silenced the bell forever. No one living today has ever heard the bell ring in its fullness, although you can probably get AI or something. D'ror as flow is more like drips and drops than dror. If we know anything about the cry to freedom, both as it's expressed in the Torah itself and as it's been expressed in America's history and in other places where freedom is a process of incremental, slow, arduous, annoyingly painful, waiting to bend the arc towards what is just. There are certainly things that we can agree upon at this moment that we would wish there was no process whatsoever. I remember this week as I was lobbying for the bill that would make people like me, as I said earlier, mandatory reporters, not protected by the law if I'm given information about a child, to lift children up to the place where they are protected, not clergy. There was a compromise needed in the bill, and so now the bill is being put forth with a carve-out, a compromise, and I thought to myself, what about the proclamation of liberty? Where does dror live? Where does that flow live? But it's not dror, it's not flowing, it's moving, and it's incremental, and it's annoying, and it's painful to watch. But the Torah wants us to know, and if anything, I don't know how Providence worked this out, that the crack in our very liberty bell would make it impossible to hear the full expression of freedom in this land, that crack also represents a willingness to work within the system, a willingness to break it at moments, but a willingness to continue making small, important changes, to not give up on arriving at number 50. Each and every year, making it a little bit better, a little bit more free. Each and every day, making it a little bit more possible for someone else along the way. The crack in that bell is an invitation for our own participation in this thing called democracy, in this thing called God's compassion and good world. It is our place to heal that crack, for we to be the bell, for us to proclaim liberty in the land. And on the heart level, what if 1 in 7 breaths was a free breath? What if every 1 in every 50 thoughts was a loving thought? Who was it? Was it Leonard Cohen who said, forget your perfect offering, there's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in? Well, maybe that's how the bell rings, friends. Maybe that's how dror happens, with drips and drops, moments of grace and not a final arrival. That can be extremely defeating. It can make it feel as though, are we there yet, Dad, Mom? Are we there yet? And who's to say what things are incrementally important, what things should we draw the line on and say, absolutely never again, not ever again? Complicated questions. And so there's another 50 that we're counting. We're counting from freedom to Sinai. And last night it was 36, and tonight we'll count again. And the rabbis instituted a counting of days that had emotional and spiritual evolution tied to them. The Bible mandates that from the second day of Passover until the 50th day thereof, we are to count days. And the rabbi said, no, don't just count days. Make each and every day. Limnot yameinu kein hoda. Make each and every day count towards Sinai, towards receiving Torah. Freedom has at least 49 steps to it. Liberation has at least 49 degrees. And so there is with us tonight someone who was accused of a crime and had to be in prison for years. And I can guarantee you that that person spent every day wondering when I will be free. When will they finally listen to me? When will my story come clean? When will justice be served? But I guarantee you that each and every day, he said, today's the day for me to work on my inner freedom. Today's the day for me to work on what it is that's been given to me today. Justice will be served at one point, but each and every day towards justice is justice itself. Each and every year towards freedom is freedom itself. Each and every moment of progress, even with its setbacks, is part of the journey, and not to give up. Not to give up. So without being political, this week was another week where we're back in the circle of inevitability. Some things seem to be exactly as they were 4 or 5 years ago. Certain stories, certain lies, certain untruths, certain distortions, certain gaslighting, if you will. If you know what I'm talking about, then great. If not, it's just the way of it in the world sometimes. And there's a part of me that says, here we go again. There's a part of me that says, here it is. The crack in the bell. Ukratim D'ror ba'aretz. Proclaim drips and drops. Proclaim the truth of incremental, not compromise, but perseverance. Incremental perseverance. Playing the long game, playing the long game, playing the long game. We will not give up until there is a proclamation, until that bell sings its song, until that crack is singing in harmonies, in quartets, you name it, it'll be an entire incredible freedom song. And until we get there, what day is it? And until we get there, what year is it? Here's where we are. And so what is it for us to do today, this week, this month? Sign a bill to protect children. Open your home to someone. Smile. Make this moment count. That's how you keep it moving. That's how you keep it flowing. That's how we keep ourselves connected. Shabbat song that I referenced in the beginning. D'ror Yikra levenu bat. D'ror Yikra. Every Shabbat, for a couple of 100 years now, there's a song called D'ror Yikra, proclaim freedom today, this Shabbat. Only one in 7 days. What about Monday? Okay, Monday. Bring a little bit of Shabbat, a little drop and drip into Monday, into Sunday, into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Proclaim liberty in the land for all of its inhabitants. May we stand firm in that place of being fighters for freedom. May we have the perseverance and the faith in spite of setbacks, in spite of prevailing winds that might make us give up, to keep going. The source of love, life, and freedom bring about a world with greater freedom for all of its inhabitants soon. And let us say, Amen.